Hey guys, it's Krystal, and I just got back from WWDC, and there was so much announced, so much to talk about, but today I'm going to talk about my favorite iOS 13 features. If you saw yesterday's event, let me know with a comment below what your favorite iOS 13 feature was. But something that is finally here that I'm really excited to see is dark mode. And I really appreciate it because I use dark mode with everything that I can on Twitter, YouTube, my MacBook. Ever since Mojave was released, I put it on right away. And yeah, this isn't anything super crazy or anything, but it looks good and I'm glad it's here. Next up, something else that looks really good too is the redesigned Photos app. Everything looks a lot better. Things are much better organized when you're just scrolling through pictures. It's also easier to look back on your memories, and it also does this thing that's really smart where it'll crop the subject in frame and knows what the subject is, and also allows text to be displayed nicely without covering any people. It looks a lot better. It's basically like a scrapbook for your phone. And while we're talking about photos, another feature that I really love is extended live photo playback. So now, if you snap a bunch of live photos, you can watch them all together because it'll stitch a series of live photos that were taken within 1.5 seconds of each other into one super live photo clip. Another cool feature with photos is editing. It's way more in depth now. The UI looks a lot better. There's a lot more tools. And I mean, I generally use like Snapseed, Visco, Lightroom, and a whole bunch of apps to edit my photos, but I feel like with the new update, I can edit straight from iOS now. And just like dark mode, another feature that was long overdue is video editing straight from iOS. You can do things like change the orientation of your video, adjust exposure, apply different filters, and overall there's just a lot more that you can do beyond just being able to trim videos. So it was very much needed, and I'm glad it's here. Next up, I did not expect to see this so soon, but we now get audio sharing with AirPods. So you can have two sets of AirPods hooked up to the same device. So now we can watch movies with friends, listen to music, and beyond that, you can even take this to the Apple TV, which is really cool. This was actually rumored exclusively for iPhone 11, but I'm glad that they didn't do that and just drew it across all of iOS. Speaking of AirPods, Siri can now read your incoming notifications. And I don't know about you, but that's really exciting to me because let's say you're busy doing something and you can't get to your phone, or if you're working out with your AirPods, then Siri can now tell you what's going on your phone. And on top of that, you can even reply to messages by using your voice. One thing that Apple does really well is security, and with this next feature, we can now sign in with Apple. So whenever you download a new app and you have to sign in, instead of signing in with Google or Facebook, you can use your Apple ID instead, which is a way more secure way of doing things. And it'll even go this step further and auto-generate random emails so that app developers never actually see your email address. Next up, let's talk about Maps because it is completely redesigned now. It looks a lot better, a lot more detailed, but probably the coolest thing about it is a new 3D look around mode. This is probably most useful when you're just exploring and walking around because it looks really smooth and realistic. It doesn't look like it was shot on a potato. And yeah, for the three of you out there that are actually gonna use it, you're gonna be stoked to see this. And with new iOS updates, we usually get better performance, but two things that really stand out is faster Face ID, and also apps download faster too because we get a smaller download size for them. Speaking of small features, another small thing within the keyboard is that we can now swipe to text. And I mean, I know Android phones have had it forever, and there was third-party apps that we can do it with on iPhones, but now is straight through iOS. This next feature we kind of saw announced yesterday with watchOS, where it'll track the audio levels around you and tell you if the environment you're in is safe for your ears, but it moves over to headphones with iOS, where there's decibel level tracking for what you're listening to. And I know this seems like a small feature, but it's actually super important because once you damage your ears, there's no reversing that. Speaking of important health updates, and this is for all my girls out there, we now get Cycle within the health app so that we can track the most dreaded days of the month, along with other important aspects of women's health, which is really cool. And I really appreciate Apple for taking a stand with this because it's definitely a topic that's not talked about enough. And when it comes to gaming, you can now connect a PS4 or Xbox controller through iOS, so you can straight up play games from the App Store with a controller, which seems a little extra for your phone, but I feel like it's pretty perfect for an iPad. iOS 13 is also stepping up the game when it comes to their Do Not Disturb mode, because now it'll be able to tell if you're in public transit versus driving in a car. And I don't know how they're gonna exactly pull this off, but if it works, it's really cool. And for this next one, we also get some Memoji updates with iOS 13. They're a lot more customizable now. You can even put makeup on your emoji. You can put AirPods in your Memoji. And yeah, if you're somebody who didn't really like them before because it didn't really look like you, now there's a better chance that it will. And on top of all that, you also get Memoji stickers. So those are my favorite iOS 13 features, but like I said before, there was so much announced at WWDC, like those great looking Mac Pros. So if you guys want to see more, like some interviews with some of my favorite people, head on over to my IGTV to see that. But yeah, that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.